Hi guys. Now we're going to look at some of uh, the scientific method in action. Okay, so first I had to come up with a project, something that I wanted to do, something that I wanted to look at that nobody had. And so this is what a thesis and um, like other published papers kind of look like. Um, this is just a thesis. So they usually have like really, really long, ridiculous names, or ridiculously long names for no reason. And then you have to have an introduction. So you do have to do some research beforehand on like uh, what uh, what hasn't been done and what questions you're asking. Um, and so this is just, and I'm just going to tell you right now, with all my source pages and my figures, this thesis is 48 pages or 41 pages long. The actual text is only like 19, but the thesis as a whole is 41 pages long so far. I haven't even completed the second half of it yet. So it just goes into the introduction. I've had to change my thesis about 2 or 3 times, which is why I'm still in school. You have to go into the history of so I'm trying out an acoustic method, which means I'm detecting them with sound, and um, it's it's accurate to a degree, or yes, it is accurate to a degree. So it's usually used in um, it's like the first thing that they set up when they're looking for an endangered species, just to see if it's in the area. And then they, move on to like something called mist netting, which is where they catch the bats. Um, and why I needed to change some methods. I need to go back and give an explanation of the equipment, how I'm going to analyze these signals, the software that I'm using, what species I'm interested in. So if I'm interested in just the bat species in Arkansas, that's what I'm limited to. I really would like to, I'm really looking for specifically the small-footed bat, which is Myotis elaibi, and they're fairly rare. Um, let's see if I can find the. It is difficult to find and has unusual summer habits, which can cause general bat surveys to inaccurately reflect true population size. So what that means is that they have a really weird roost during the summer, and we're not sure if the overall population in the United States is bigger than what we know, because the mist nets are they set out mist nets to catch the bats so they can physically pick them up and identify them, right? So you would have to but like I'm looking at bluff sites, and it's very difficult to set up a mist net at a bluff site. Just trust me on that one. It's easier to just mount a acoustic detector on like a camera stand or just mount a passive one on a tree and just let it sit there and record. Um, and you know, there's ways of analyzing the data where you can estimate like how many bats were active that night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see the objectives. This is my reasoning for doing this project as well as my goals. So these are just my plain objectives. Examine chiropterans, so that's all bats. That is the class of bats. Species richness, so that's like how many different species are in an area. At exposed rock bluffs using acoustic detection with special emphasis on the small-footed bat. I also want to establish a standard protocol for acoustical survey methods at bluffs in Arkansas to continue monitoring of species distribution. So what I mean by species distribution is I'm looking at several different sites that are far away from each other and how they're like their range within Arkansas. So what species I find where. And establish a baseline of data collection to begin building what's called occupancy models. That's just a mathematical model to predict whether or not a species will be in a certain place at a certain time, yada, 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 yada. And the last one is not doable, so I haven't revised that yet because they have a certain method for going about contributing to acoustic spectrograms for automatic detection bases. So here in my methods, I have to list my study areas, and I had to go into great description of what my study area, the geology, the vegetation of what my surveys look like. I had to give a you know, a synopsis of the species that I am looking at. So acoustic surveys can potentially detect all bat species. However, the microphone in this study has a maximum limit of 125 kilohertz. And then some bat calls actually go above that range, but I have determined, I've looked at all the acoustic detection and all of them produce calls under 125 kilohertz. So all of the species in Arkansas can be included when creating this prediction model. So, and then I go on to say specifically that my species of interest in this project is the small-footed bat due to its unusual roosting habits and its low relative abundance throughout its range. And what relative abundance means is how many, like say that you have 50 total bats in an area and maybe one of those bats is a small-footed bat. So in comparison, it has low abundance in comparison to all the other bat species. Then I list my equipment, my sampling techniques. So I have to be really specific. All sites will be surveyed on nights when the temperature will not drop below 5 degrees Celsius. Wind speed does not exceed, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I have to go into like the degree of incline for my microphone and the like any application softwares, hardware that I use. Then I have to propose a timeline. And then my summarization. and data analysis. So again, I'm looking at species richness, and I'm looking at the variables of the season, the geographic regions, the counties, districts, and parks that I'm looking in, and elevation. Um, I'm also looking at temperature and weather and human activity, because I am looking at state and national parks. So I want sites, you know, my sites are like sometimes there's a lot of humans there, sometimes it's just me. Um, then and then the attempt to build the predictability model. Then hopefully that will contribute to the suggested standard protocol for acoustic surveys in Arkansas, because right now Arkansas Game and Fish does not use acoustic surveys, because one, the equipment costs a pretty good chunk of money, like the passive detector, which is just like, it's like a game hunter, a game camera. It kind of looks like a game camera, and that's about $1,000. And the little red one that I had that I'm gonna show you guys, that's about 200. But then you have to attach it to a phone, and it's only active, and so you have to keep an eye on it, etc. So I would, you know, if these methods are working and they're accurate, then I can help establish a acoustic, the protocol, so the steps, the procedure for detecting or setting up acoustic surveys for Arkansas Game and Fish. And then I have anticipated report and like anything that I'm going to, like the completion date of my thesis, which is inaccurate now, any kind of publications, like anything, any magazines that I want to publish in, because I got historical data from the uh, Arkansas Game and Fish and the, oh gosh, what is it? The historical something commission, national natural heritage commission. There it is, and the United States Forestry Service. The ASU was gonna participate in a study, and they did not. It turned out that their thesis, the thesis that they were going to do, kind of fell through. So then you can see here I have lots of figures and tables before I even finish my thesis, because I have to, you know, map out, I have to give the geographic regions of Arkansas. I have to get distribution maps. I have to prove that the software that I'm using is both accurate and precise. So tables of it's just tables of the species in Arkansas, their range, their endangerment status, and their codes. So they have 6-letter codes. Here is a table of their roosting sites and the optimal observation methods that they have. So like how likely, if you're going to use this this method, you're more likely to find this type of bat. A wild a table of the available softwares for acoustic analysis, their cost. Do they have auto ID? What devices are they compatible on? And are they FWA approved? FWA is Federal Wildlife Association, I believe. So that's just a continuation of the table. Um, Estimated annual cycle. So bats go through a hibernation phase and then an active phase during the summer, as you probably know. And then I have all of these sites and like their longitude and latitude stats, if they're in a park, what the elevation is, a copy of my timetable, a some sample data, and I had to make up like a sort of a legend for like the sky code, so like kind of like the weather service uses. So I would just use numbers to indicate like few clouds, partly cloudy, cloudy or overcast, smoke or fog, drizzle or light rain. So that's just like weather status. That is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Beaufort wind code. So that's wind speed. And then this one I had to make up a human traffic codes. So it goes from 0 to 3. So there's none aside from me, which is 0. And then high would be like a lot of people. So visiting parks recently, there have been a lot of people. And this is my lit sided. So let's count the pages of how many lit sided I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 pages of literature cited. I have a lot of pages that are dedicated to tables and figures and graphs, and 19 pages worth of text, and I'm not even halfway through. So that is the beginning. That is the, this would be the research question and the hypotheses, and then the develop of the experiment, the proposal of the experiment. So that's like halfway through the scientific method. So I hope you enjoyed the TED Talk on the very boring part of a thesis. And I hope you'll enjoy the next videos